Great. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the P&Z meeting in Basalt on October the 5th at 6:02 p.m. And we'll take a call to order to start, or roll call.
Okay, Bill Marin,
Yo.
Kyle Oberketter,
Here.
Gino Rossetti,
Here.
Eric Volzek,
Here.
Michelle Tebow,
Here.
Rob Levitt had indicated that he was going to be absent, Cindy Hirschfeld.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum, and just to note, you might have saw it when I sent out your meeting materials, but the town council did reappoint Eric Volzek and Rob Levitt and Gino Rossetti, and Cindy Hirschfeld was made a permanent regular member of the P&Z, and that was Bernie Grauer. His term was up, and he elected not to reapply. So
Great.
there we go. So we're ready for the next item.
Excellent. Next item of order is to approve the minutes from September 21st. Do we have any comments or adjustments? If not, do we have a motion? Gino has a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Bill? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Great. So, next item on the agenda, is a public hearing on the Forkfront Basalt LLC application on Lot J of the Basalt Commercial Park. Is that you, Susan, or James?
No, we're gonna, James is gonna kick this off, and then we'll have the applicant. So James, you wanna set out what we're gonna do today?
Yeah, just a quick second. Let me share my screen here.
I'm not on. Are you getting feedback, Caesar?
Okay, I don't hear it anymore.
Okay.
So. This is a public hearing on an application submitted by Forkfront LLC requesting approvals to construct a 12-unit apartment building on Lot J of the Basalt Commercial Park subdivision and PUD. The site subject to the application is approximately a 9,000 square foot lot. It's located at the end of Emma Road, and P&Z conducted a site visit earlier today. It's this site right here. Just to give your bearings, here is the Ponderosa Park, and here is Emma Road going past the Roaring Fork Apartments down to Basalt River Lofts building, which is the blue building located right here, and then the subject property is located at the end of Emma Road. The property has a small corner that is in the 100-year floodplain, but the building is not proposed in the floodplain. As I noted, the proposal is to construct a 12-unit apartment building, and it's proposed to contain 3 units of deed-restricted affordable housing that are proposed to be Category 2 units, with 1 of the affordable housing units on each of the 3 floors that's proposed. In conjunction with the building, they're proposing to construct 26 parking spaces that are laid out on the site plan, as you can see on the screen here and as is in your packet. With regards to the review process, the applicant received a sketch plan approval pursuant to resolution number 2, series of 2021, which is on the website at the agenda center with the packet materials. The applicant chose to break the review of the PUD amendment and site plan into a sketch and a final plan review. So this is the final plan review. It entails a round of review by the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Town Council, with the Planning and Zoning Commission making a recommendation to the Council on the final plan application. So this evening, staff would like to briefly go through the discussion items that we've identified for the final plan review. And then staff would suggest taking applicant comments and more detail on the final plan application from them. And then taking public comments, because it is a public hearing, and providing P&Z discussion. There is a draft set of conditions for the P&Z's consideration in your memo. So discussion items, staff has identified a series of discussion items. The first being the consistency with the master plan. This property is designated as mixed-use commercial with a density range of 12 units, up to 12 units, as the applicant has proposed. The P&Z and council at the sketch plan level felt the density that was being proposed was appropriate, adjacent to a BRT stop as well as close to downtown services. So it was included as part of the sketch plan approvals. Other discussion items included consistency with the neighborhood character. The applicants made revisions to the building concept as part of the sketch plan review to address some of the concerns that P&Z had at the sketch plan. The applicant added vertical elements, as you can see on the building drawing here. They also lightened the colors of the facade and adjusted some of the window pattern to provide more of a rhythm in the fenestration. And it's proposed to be a modern building. It's similar in style to that of the Basalt River Lofts. With regards to the PUD amendments that are being requested, there are two requests for PUD amendments. The first is to allow for a 100% residential project on the site. The PUD approved a mixed-use concept for the site, and prior designs were mixed-use concepts. So a PUD amendment is required to do a 100% residential building. At the sketch plan level, the P&Z and Town Council were supportive of permitting a 100% residential building. The second request for PUD amendment is to amend the building height from 30 feet to 32 feet to make the units more livable. The P&Z was supportive of this adjustment as part of the sketch plan review. The PUD has a height limit of 30 feet for this building, but the underlying zoning has a 33-foot height limit. The council did not approve the height adjustment at the sketch plan level, but suggested that the applicant could come back with that request as part of the final plan if they added community benefit for consideration by P&Z and Town Council. In terms of the community benefit that they've proposed, the applicants have proposed to provide a contribution to extend the Ponderosa Trail, as P&Z saw on the site visit. We've got a map here on the screen that shows the area of the extension that's proposed, and it would loop around, but come back and loop on itself, as you see there in red. The Ponderosa Trail is improved to the Whitewater Park emergency access, which is right here. So the trail extension would be that piece. In addition to the trail extension, the applicants have proposed to improve the mid-block trail head. This is the central trail head to the Ponderosa Trail that's about halfway down Emma Road. The town has had issues with trucks turning around down at the end of Emma Road. And so staff worked on a concept to have kind of a combined trailhead and truck turnaround midway. And so there's improvements identified there. The P&Z looked at these potential improvements at the site visit that was conducted. So the applicants have proposed to make these improvements in conjunction with their grading work on the project and their earthwork. Or pay a contribution to the town in the amount of $70,000, which is based on a cost estimate for the improvements, if they're not able to make those improvements within 7 months of obtaining approvals. And this is reflected in the draft conditions that the P&Z has. Post was supportive of the improvements, and hope the timing would work out for the improvements to be completed by midsummer next year, to allow for the Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers to come in kind of after that in late summer, fall, to kind of finish off improvements on the Ponderosa Trail as part of a community project. Other discussion items include the height of the solar panels. It's better defined now than it was at sketch as to what the height of the solar panels would be. It's limited to several feet above the height limit, consistent with the town code, and the applicants can provide more discussion on that topic. In terms of building materials, which is another topic, the applicants have provided details on the building materials, which I had, but it doesn't look like I have any more here. But all the materials are fire rated to satisfy the wildfire protection ordinance, and that has been reinforced with conditions of approval. Other items for consideration include the affordable housing mitigation requirements. As I noted, the applicants are proposing to provide 3 Category 2 deed-restricted rental units, and there's 1 proposed on each floor. You can see them here. They are the units that are C units. They're the ones in peach on each floor. They would meet the size requirements for the affordable housing units in the community housing guidelines. And Bach reviewed the units and felt that they were livable, and they recommended approval of the affordable housing concept for the application. Other topics that came up at the sketch plan review included the lighting, the exterior lighting. The applicants have provided an exterior lighting plan that was in your packet materials. It includes photometric plan. Staff, in evaluating the photometric plan, felt that it provides pretty sufficient lighting adjacent to the building and the parking area, as well as there's lighting adjacent to the trash facilities, which are located over in this area, away from the building itself. There is a condition that's been included in the draft conditions of approval that this lighting needs to be on dimmers. And we've been requiring this pretty much throughout town so that Public Works in the planning department can adjust lighting levels if we have problems once they're built. Because it's pretty difficult just from using photometric plan to get a good sense of really what the lighting levels are going to be. Other topics of consideration included green building. They're required to meet the town's sustainable building regulations, and they've proposed solar on the roof of the structure to help satisfy their renewable energy requirements. Also, they've provided car charging stations. It's not on this plan, but they're located in this area right here. There's 2 of them proposed. With regards to other topics, floodplain and environmentally sensitive area review, there is a small corner of the property that is in the floodplain, but the building itself is not in the floodplain. The town's consulting hydrologist, who is Robert Crable, is still in the process of reviewing the ESA piece of it. Staff, given that the building is not located in the 100-year floodplain, is anticipating conditions related to the scour depth of the foundation to ensure that the foundation wouldn't get scoured out over time. There were similar requirements that were required of Basalt River lofts when it was built. And finally, in terms of discussion items, vested rights. The town code requires 3 years of vested rights, and the applicants have a condition that they would meet this 3 years of vested rights condition consistent with the town code. So this evening, staff would suggest and recommend hearing applicant comments, taking public comments as it is a public hearing, and then providing P&Z discussion. If you're comfortable with the conditions, you could provide a recommendation. Otherwise, if you needed more information that we don't have this evening, you could continue it and identify what additional information you might need for a recommendation. And so we have the applicants here this evening. We've got Aaron Ward, who is the property owner, and we've got Ramsey Fulton and Jeff Dahl from Building Seed Architects. And so let me stop sharing my screen here.
And if you're gonna talk, you should just make your way up to the table, because Caesar, otherwise Caesar will instruct you to speak into the mic.
Yes.
Let me load the applicant's presentation on the Zoom here.
Am I fine without a mask, or would you?
Yeah. We're in Eagle County. Where we were on the site visit is Picken County.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, well, thank you, James, for that introduction.
Or you can just tell me.
First of all, I just want to say thank you for hearing us out today. It's a really pleasure to be here, and we're excited to present this apartment building, 12-unit apartment building, transit-oriented, sort of workforce-related housing proposal to you tonight. We did visit with you twice, one time in early mid-January of this year and one time in December of the following. So a lot of this material you'll see is redundant. The design really hasn't changed, except for in ways that is in reaction to town council and P&Z's recommendations and further discussions with James to make it more appealing and a better project for everyone. So if you want to move to the next slide, James, I guess. So just to orient you, I think we all large majority of the people here walk the site this afternoon, and so it's pretty evident that, you know, it's in a great location for transit-oriented sort of development where you can have easy access to both town, schools, amenities at the edge of Emma Road there, and just connection to the community, as well as the hub at the Rafta bus station there. And a great urban infill lot at the end of this development. This will be the last parcel to be developed here. One of the, can you go to the next one, please, James? One of the architectural challenges of this site that we addressed early on and noticed was the juxtaposition between a beautiful connection to the river and the natural setting of the trees and the foliage of the riparian area. In kind of a juxtaposition to the noise of Highway 82 and that environment. But at the same time, we wanted to make sure our architectural solution addressed the front of the building, where people will arrive and where people will perceive the building from the highway and walk into their units. And so our architectural response really is one where we tried to really open up the units to that wonderful environment on the back side, but also make the front of the building appealing and appropriate, being next to Basalt River Loft's architectural style. There's really only one neighbor to this parcel, which is also kind of unique. About 65 feet away, we estimated, is the Basalt River Lofts, and the other sides are really a lot of connection to the outdoors, which is a unique architectural opportunity for us. And so we found every face of this building to be important, as opposed to in some cases where it's tucked up tight against another structure. Go to the next slide. So this is just, you know, obviously we've seen the Ponderosa Trail and the river frontage that are adjacent there, but I thought I'd keep this from last year's presentation because it was already in the PowerPoint, for one, and for two, because it helps orient the discussion. The next slide is just about a year ago to this week, when I took these pictures to get ready for the first presentation round. And obviously, you can see how wonderful of an environment that is with those tall cottonwood trees at 60 and 70 feet and beautiful fall scenery. Next slide. And then this is sort of the approach from the Basalt River Lofts back towards the site where we just were earlier today. Next slide. So this is the first floor plan, and basically there's 3 floor plates that are more or less the same unit. And the third one over that's in the peach, unit C, C1, C2, and C3 are affordable units. And I kind of wanted to show the floor plans in this presentation just to kind of drive home the demand for apartments and affordable living in the Basalt area and the whole valley for that matter. You know, it's highly documented need for housing of both free market, obtainable, and affordable housing. And something that we pulled from our earlier presentation was 1,900 shortage according to a 2017 study of 100% to 120% AMI. And those projections, I'm sure, continue to rise from that study. So the response here is, 25% deed restricted affordable housing. They're, all 3 of them are 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, as James mentioned, exceeding the size requirements and the amenity requirements there, filling the gap in 2-bedroom inventory that's in much demand. But also there is a little bit of diversity in unit type in this building that was partially driven by the geometry of the building envelope, whereas on the far right side we do have a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, which is also a nice amenity to sort of keep the diversity of unit types available in workforce housing. On the main level, since we're already on that one and sort of staying there, it seems like, we also would like to highlight that on the main level, those are all planned to be Type B accessible ready units, and those are adjacent to the 2 handicap parking spaces that we're providing on the street. And as a final note to this particular topic, as James mentioned, we have worked with BAC, Basalt Affordable Community Housing Board, on these approvals and have been taking their advice along the way, and it seems like a quality product to them. So I'll let you go to the second floor so you can kind of see how they stack up. Really not much change in the architectural floor plate, just from a Type B unit to one that is not accessible ready, but there's very little change to that really. Next floor up. And the third floor is really identical to the second floor, so we just put it in there so it didn't get confusing. If you want to go to the next slide. So yeah, obviously everyone is familiar with this graphic here. It's not an original product of ours. We took this right out of your master plan. But in our presentation in early January of this year, we did go into length about how we have responded to the master plan with this design. And I'll just reiterate once again that one of the really unique elements of this project was that very seldomly are you able to have a measure of what the community wants right when you're starting a project. And so the time when this was published, it wasn't even finalized, but it was in final draft, and by the time we actually started designing it, it was adopted. And so we really were able to use that document as a guide to how we make decisions about this product, and Aaron was very much wanted to have that as a guide to the process along the way. And so we obviously could go into great detail. I'm happy to hit on any of one of the points of the themes you have, but obviously affordable and inclusive housing, that's pretty evident to our design. And the other that I think is very relevant here would be resilient and sustainable environment. And so there's a number of environmental sort of considerations and sustainability that I could be happy to list for you guys if necessary here tonight. And then the next slide. Another obviously a great thing is that there was a sort of a recommendation before Aaron had his first conversation with James Lent to understand that, okay, the town seems like they would like this to possibly be up to 12 units. And so understanding that allowed us to sort of have a little bit of confidence that it was something that was of benefit to the town to have a PUD amendment where the ground floor became residential, which would really be the only way to hit that target here on this parcel. Next slide. So this is basically the current site plan, and I wanted to pull this up to point out a couple of things. One, you can see that the 2 handicap spaces that we have provided right in the middle of the site, obviously in good proximity to the Type B units we're having. Also, we have electric vehicle charging stations that are provided on site. And we have some parking that's on site and some that's off. And as we talked about earlier today, on location, that most of the other developments in this particular PUD have a number of spaces on site. But we are here hitting our 26 required spaces. We have made adjustments after hearing concerns from our neighbor at Basalt River Lofts. We've made adjustments after hearing from the town arborist, and we added a handicap stall at the recommendation of the police department. And so we have been working to try to both hit our number and make this a success for everyone involved. And I think I hit on the 2 EV charging stations, so we can move on from that slide, I guess, at this point. And then, so that kind of brings me to the sort of the points that were brought up in town council about, well, if we want to have a 32-foot tall building, they'd really like to see us have added community benefit offerings. And so we've been working with James and other departments in the town to kind of come up with creative ways of adding community benefit to justify that slight PUD adjustment. And one of those is obviously the EV charging stations, which are on the plan that will be serviced by the PV panels on the roof, which is a great, system there. And the second would be, that we have a cooperative agreement to option for a buy down of the affordables from a category 2 to a category 1 with the town as part of our approvals here, which is another one of the requests we were happy to be a part of. The third you'll see on the screen here, and that would be the turnaround that is in great need on Emma Road for the service vehicles that have to go to the gas station and Subway and the liquor store and other commercial areas that are in close proximity to the site, and having a viable path for how they're going to get their vehicles turned around. And so as part of our financial contribution or actually labor, however it ends up working out, we've agreed to that community benefit. Go to the next slide. And then, as James mentioned, the last one of the community benefit items that we're sort of offering is the funding and the extension / completion of the Ponderosa Trail, which is in great shape right now up until it hits the emergency access easement. And the plan here is sort of the loose sketch design for what it might become. And so those are sort of 4 reasons why we feel it would be, advisable to go ahead and go for that height increase. But the reason for the height increase really is basically for quality of living. We're just trying to create a quality space for all the units, all 12 units, and 9 of which are 2 bedrooms. So the number of occupants that we're trying to make life better for by having 9-foot ceilings, and where you have ductwork and need to have a drop, which is a very common 8-foot 4-ish instead of 7-foot 4-ish. And so, most municipal codes that I'm aware of where they're promoting 3 stories of construction typically have, more like a 33-foot height limit. And so, because most municipal codes are looking for quality construction. It's just pretty commonplace for 9-foot ceiling heights to be fairly standard for modern multifamily development. Promotes healthy living, less reliance on artificial light, better air quality and circulation, plus a larger viewport to nature, and the avoidance of those sub 8-foot ceiling drops. Another added benefit there is the inventory of affordable housing that the town of Basalt is sort of getting out of this. Those will be of higher quality and more storage with the added height. And go ahead and head to the next slide. And this is just a graphic we created at one of the earlier rounds for P&Z. I think this was the second P&Z hearing we had, where we kind of did a compare and contrast of the 2 buildings one being 30 and one being 32, and you can see there's very little visual impact there. And you can also see at the bottom of this that, where we do have mechanical drops that are going to be necessary in the Highway 82 side of that space, there would be a need to go below 8 feet if we didn't have a height increase. So go ahead and go to the next one. And then I did include our material board in this one, and I'm glad I threw it in the last minute, James.
Yeah,
So you can
mine
get it in there.
disappeared apparently.
So, and this material board was really, with the 2 rounds of P&Z, one before Christmas and one shortly thereafter, one of the things that P&Z did sort of address at the last round of approvals was a way to improve the materials and the look of this Highway 82 facing facade. And here you can see a good representation of some of those final selections that kind of were notioned at the second round and its sketch design were approved. They're also a reflection of the Roaring Fork Fire District's plan for non-combustible and fire-hardened community. And so with that, we'll go to the last slide, which is just a larger rendering of what you're looking at there. And I will open it up to comments and questions.
Thank you very much. Questions from council? Start with Cindy.
I think my only question for now is all the units would be uniform. They would each have the 9-foot ceilings with the extra
Yes,
2 feet in height.
we don't have any intention on having a varying ceiling height. So if one of the units changes, all 12 would.
Okay. That's all I have for now. Thanks.
Bill?
Well, I was going to ask about the type B units, but you answered that. I'm glad you guys did that. That's kind of a comment, but I'm just happy you did it. That's a big thing for me. But also for staff, on the material list, is the material list they're showing binding in any way?
We have conditions in the draft conditions of approval that do make them binding, that they have to be consistent with the materials that they showed at the final plan.
Okay.
There's always potential for, there to be insubstantial amendments to be approved, but there is binding requirements.
Okay. 'Cause I just didn't want to see have a value engineering process and we wind up with, stucco and asphalt.
Yeah.
Composition tiles,
Sure.
So yeah, that's why I asked that. But thanks, that's it.
Yeah, and it wouldn't necessarily come back to you, like say they wanted to switch a different metal out.
Yeah.
The technical review committee would be the group, and then it would be the technical review committee, which is staff, that would decide whether it needed to be elevated and it actually go to the council.
The question was, does staff have a mechanism to monitor that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When, I think my questions are more for staff. Should I wait?
No.
Okay. When do we think the ESA will be completed?
We have a requirement that it has to be completed before the town council review of the application.
Okay.
And keep in mind, if you're not happy with that, you could ask for it to be continued, but
Yeah.
just kind of a clarification, this is set up as a 2-step review, so this is the P&Z's review, you won't see it again. So it's kind of set up that if you're comfortable, you could take action tonight. If you wanted more information or you wanted to wait for something, then you could continue it. So,
Okay. My other question is, can you remind me what the height allowance is for the solar panels?
The solar panels, by the code, is allowed 5 feet. The applicants, I think, have proposed for it to be not more than 3 at this point.
Yeah, we're thinking 2'6" to 3 feet based upon feedback from SunSense.
Can you remind me, the roof, there's sort of a parapet here, so they'll be hidden a little bit, is that right?
We actually took away quite a bit, the 6 inches of the parapet, because it didn't seem that the solar offended anybody, and no one thought that we needed to hide it.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you. Mhm, that's it.
Mostly for, I think, staff. What is the landscape or open space percentage that's needed on this property?
The PUD requirements for landscaping and open space. Let me go to my chart.
20% per the PUD. On page 8 of your conditions, James?
Yeah, correct. 20%.
And this meets that without that parcel to the west being included?
It does because of the realm around the outside, basically the setback area around the building on all sides.
Okay, what does the green ride surcharge go to?
The green ride surcharge is a concept that was discussed at the sketch plan level for further consideration at the final plan. Basically, the way it's set up, and we have one in Willits on a couple of buildings, it's paid for by the renters, and it would go to the potential for car share program to be established, or it could also be included for bike share as well as an additional funding mechanism.
Has anything been done with the other properties yet, or we're just collecting money at this point?
We're just collecting money at this point. The green ride surcharge on like Block 11 and Willits hasn't amassed enough funds to do anything with yet.
We have kind of a green initiative fee on other residential development, kind of commingles as we have a project. So we have used that for capital improvements for WeCycle.
But that's a different fee, but it has the same
Yeah, same
similar
uses.
use abilities.
And then in the parking, in number 8 for parking, you mentioned the 2 spots across from Basalt River Lofts specifically.
Yeah.
What is it? The 5 spots across the street are being created out of thin air.
Yeah, the applicant would need to amend the plat after. We do have the plat here. Let me bring that up. Sorry, I'm having trouble rotating it, but you can see.
We're not looking at anything yet, if you don't know that.
Oh, shoot. Let me share it here. I've got to share it.
PowerPoint in the Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
You're kind of a few layers deep there.
I did a whole presentation looking at my own screen. Like,
So this is an excerpt from the plat, and wow, I don't know what's happening here. Are you still sharing? No.
I'm not sharing screen, no.
Susan, when is the city council meeting scheduled?
not yet.
So Kyle, I'm not sure why I can't share my screen to show you the plat. Seems to be frozen.
Close PowerPoint, maybe?
Yeah, I'll try that.
I was gonna say, shut it.
There you go. It hijacked your screen. Oh,
It's frozen. I can't close it either.
I'm wondering what people on TV are seeing. Can you tell us, Caesar?
I'm just showing you guys right now.
Control Alt Delete.
Same thing you guys see.
Susan, can I ask you another question?
Yeah, go ahead. You were asking
I have a
about the
bunch.
council schedule, and James, correct me, we have not set the council public hearing. So
have not.
it'll be, at least 3 weeks out, because we have, you have the 15-day notice that we have, so we have to get it to the paper, so probably, trying to just get my head around this a minute.
Well, that's okay. I have another, I have a different,
Yeah,
related question. Have we heard any issues at the building next door with their foundation or such, being in that
no,
location?
we haven't. They did have some flooding in their crawl space, which they had a lot of models down there. So they had some flooding in their crawl space that I know of, but they haven't had any issues with their foundation. The history of this is that after the floodplain maps were done, McLaughlin did a river stabilization plan for the town that had basically sleeves in the river. So you would actually excavate the river and then put concrete sleeves in it. And the town decided that it was a typology that they didn't want to pursue because of just the, wasn't consistent with their goals. So instead, our river hydrologist, who's Robert Crable from Matrix, he decided that the best thing to do was to take the foundations below the scour line. So Basalt River Lofts, the Snowflake where Real America is, all those newer buildings, the foundation goes below the scoured up.
Okay,
That's how they were approved. And that was kind of the solution to let's not kind of concrete the river with these bands.
super helpful, thank you.
Yep.
So going back to Kyle's question here, this is the original plat, and here is Lot J, here is Emma Road coming down to the end. And you see the parking spaces that are across from Basalt River Lofts, and they were allocated 2 of those parking spaces for Lot J. And so that's part of the proposal, is to use 2 of those parking spaces as it was originally platted. And then we've identified that there would be some additional spaces created in this area. There's would need to be a replat of this area with those parking spaces added to it.
Then the additional parking in that area was something that was of discussion with the PUD before we brought it to the town. And we actually originally thought that where the emergency access easement is where it would be preferred to have parking, but we discovered after talking to Harry Teague and other members of the PUD that they would much rather see it away from there. And so we worked on a plan that we showed them as part of our PUD approval before we brought it to the town.
And then my last question is, for the affordable housing, do we have any requests that we can make based on getting to that category 2 number? Or is it purely up to the applicant? So could we ask for 1, 2, and 3 compared to all 2s? Or that's just purely up to them?
I think you can, the way the language is.
You
So
could.
you could ask for a mix if you wanted to. That's under the discretion of the town.
Okay.
Usually they end up, our code allows that, and we envision that most applicants would ask for it. They tend to just come in, if it's category 2 that's required, they do category 2, if it's category 1, and not mix it up. And I don't know really the reason for that, but they tend to just come in and ask for the straight category.
What I've heard is the reason that most developers don't is a management scenario. It's easier to manage, all the units of the same category rather than manage units of different category rents.
And that said, the Real America project has a lot of different permutations and combinations, because some of it is the SHAFA financing, and so it has a much lower rate than other units. So it does manage those.
Is that something we'd have to ask for in the change now, or that could get changed in front of city council?
Well, if the P&Z wanted it, then it should be part of your recommendations.
Okay.
And then the council would have to agree, with the P&Z.
Okay, thank you.
Before I go to Gino, just in that vein, was it discussed with Bach about doing a mix like this, or? they just-
It was not.
Okay, thank you. Gino, questions?
Just a couple. I got the impression when you started that you said that this is the new design. And do you happen to have the old design here? Is it any place that's available, or?
It could be pulled up, and the old packets would probably be the fastest way for James to get it onto the.
Not really all that sure, but at the comment time, I would have to comment on this. The second question that I would have for you is, on P01, which is the, whatever it is, the site plan, I guess, you have a roof plan that I believe is holding the solar elements, which are on the western part of the building. I don't quite understand the change in the roof line, because it doesn't reflect it in, nor even patterns, the building below. Is that, am I reading right, or is this an old iteration?
That's a current roof plan with the PV, and the thing that Aaron brought up earlier is our original application was to follow with the 33-foot building height per the underlying zoning, which is what we felt was reasonable. Then upon, some discussion and, in trying to come up with a fair balance of those concerns, we eliminated the parapet, and therefore we're able to, that was one of the mechanisms we used to bring the building height down. And so maybe that's what you're referring to with that. But there were other massing changes made that it's hard to represent what those are unless you see them side by side. But also material changes that from one P&Z meeting to the other, right before Christmas and after Christmas, it was thought to, at the time, that those changes were significant enough to get us to town council meeting.
So I am reading this right, that there are 4 units that have partial roof covering over their terrace.
That is not correct. That's a shadow line you're seeing there. So that's, I think there's a drop shadow in the rendering in order to show. Yeah, so there's a shadow so that you can tell the depth of the building in the rendering, so that you see the shadow that the building's creating on the ground,
Okay.
which you might be reading as a building area when it's not.
Okay, thank you.
Gino, other questions?
That's it, thank you.
A couple general questions. One is, I know we've talked about the solar panels. Do you have specific other green initiatives or ways you're going to meet the building code?
Yeah, we certainly do, and those are in the packet, but I'd be happy to sort of
Summer, yeah.
read those off to you. Well, the first one we list is satisfaction of the Basalt Sustainable Building Regulations. The second one we list is density of housing, smaller footprints of housing achieved, transit-oriented housing, multi-mode commuting opportunities provided, reclaimed and recycled post-industrial and post-consumer products for the exterior of the building and the interiors, synthetic exterior wood products proposed is made of 60% rice husk, so and it's also non-flammable. So that's two good things for us here. The PV array evaluated for installation to offset electrical demand as another one, and high efficiency plumbing and electric fixtures are planned, sorry. Localized mechanical, high-efficiency HVAC systems targeted. Heat pump, heating and cooling, air-to-air rooftop systems are proposed. Solar tempered design proposed, focusing the large expansion of glass on the north aspect of the building. So those are the ones we've listed, but, you know, we're always looking to do as much as we can.
No, appreciate it, and just want to kind of hear it on the record and what that looks like. Drawing a blank. So, jumping off that, why should we at this point, we have many conversations all the time about affordable housing and wanting units, and it's all admirable, and the direction we're moving in. We often don't talk about the flip side of that is, great, we've got people living here, where are they going to work? So can you talk to why we should be okay giving up potential workspace and small office space for employees, why the apartments are more necessary at this point, I guess?
My personal, and hopefully Aaron agrees with this, but it has to do with the location of the lot. Down at the end of that dead-end road is not a very viable place for commerce in a lot of areas, in a lot of aspects, I should say. So I think that would be the leading reason that I would bring. And also, it is a great place for housing. And, if we're going to hit the deficit of housing we have, we should be looking at opportunities where underutilized commercial areas could become residential.
Want to add, or?
I'd agree with that, the location, I know that, I do commercial real estate for a living, and I know that it's from a rental standpoint as well as selling those units in Harry Teague's building. They sat there for a while, and it could have been from other market conditions as well, in 2009, 2010. But it did not appear to be the optimal office space, and it certainly wouldn't appeal for retail because has no the real visibility, and it's kind of a destination rather than a pass by. So those are the primary reasons. I will mention as well that there's some other projects coming online, the tree farm, that's going to bring a lot of office space and retail space to the market.
Great, thank you. I have one more question. We're going to let Gino go first.
Thank you. I'd like to just follow up on Michelle's question to you. At the 32-foot line, which I don't want to comment on, but on the 32-foot line, is this a curb or is it a parapet?
It's a curb, yeah.
Like just a 6-8 inch curb type as
Yeah,
opposed to 2 or 3 foot? Thank you.
So my last question is for the applicant, but also for staff. I really appreciate the condominiumization amendment that you threw in there. Was there any discussion similar to what we've had about the BCC space about trying to minimize short-term rentals? And would you be opposed to that if we wanted to approve something like that?
This was brought up in the Bach meeting, and I have no intention, so I have no problem with some legislation coming through. Again, back to my real job. I see it in all these markets. We appraise all over Western Colorado because we just do commercial, and it's it seems to be there's a direct correlation between in the markets like Durango that are putting some legislation in there. It is kind of stamping it out a little bit and helping. So I have no intention of doing any short-term rentals at my property. I intend on managing it myself. I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. I do not have time to turn over units every 3 days. So that would be my answer. And I'd have no problem, being a part of the legislation to say that I'm not going to do that.
Gotcha. And staff, was there any resistance from council in the language you were using for BCC? Would that be something we could adopt?
It's easy to say no short-term rental. It's a little bit more complicated in the, because short-term rental is 30 days or less. And where that discussion a little bit on the BCC property is the leases between 2 and 6 months. Because in there, we had a restriction that 60% of the leases had to be 6 months or more. Is that how it's written, James?
Yeah, that's how it's written.
So we added that complication
Okay.
on there, and we haven't, on the BCC property, we haven't totally come to resolution on that. As you know, it was continued, but
Yeah.
that was one of the items that was brought up, is kind of that 2 to 6 month, what's happening in there. But if we just said no short-term rental, that mean no 30 days or less.
Great, thank you. Any additional questions? If not,
Can I ask one more? Sorry,
no, you're good.
I'm going back to the parking. How are we seeing a site plan application before a replat? Before a
You're
plat?
looking at it together.
We are looking
Yeah,
at this
yeah,
together.
yeah. A lot of our approvals, we're doing a number of steps. So what this does is authorizing us to do the PUD amendment, which is that PUD plat amendment.
But, so the ordinance will also include the ESA, it will include the PUD amendment, the plat amendment with the PUD, the site plan review, so it all gets wrapped into one approval ordinance ultimately.
Okay.
So, James, I actually found the other, so if you go to the December 15th, 2020 packet, and you're on, what page am I on? I'm on page of that item, of the pack, I'm on page 28. So Gina, we'll show it on the screen, but this is what it looked like before, but we'll show, I think James will be able to find it. So you can see it's darker.
You said December?
Yeah, December 15th, 2020,
Thank you.
page 28.
Nice work. And this is a good example of, how our plans came together after listening to feedback, and it's a much better building if you ask us.
So let me share it through Zoom too, I have to do that.
Yeah, and I'll share my screen closer up with Gino since he's particularly interested in it.
So one of the
That's what I
earlier,
thought.
other comments we had
Thank you.
was the materials. Obviously, we addressed those. It's more of a soft wood grain. That lower band of gray siding has been removed. There's also a thought that maybe we weren't addressing a breaking down of the massing in a horizontal datum, which is when we sort of changed up to have sort of more of a two-tower design towards the end of the building there, but we also didn't want to sacrifice unit size, for these, and so the massing, some of the massing stayed the same. The materials got softened. The sort of grayish box that's in the foreground in the corner came down in height on the front, as did the building in general. So those were some of the adjustments made.
And one of the reasons why the darker material, we lowered that directly to the 30-foot height, because above it is essentially a wood grain that kind of blends in with the trees, so that your eye line goes to the 30 feet, although there is a little bit of space above that. In the new plan, not that one.
Gino, any follow-up?
Pardon me?
Any follow-up?
No, I'm all done. Thank you.
Great. So I'd like to open it up now for a public hearing at 7:02. Susan, you want to give the online instructions?
Yes, just give me a second here. The easiest way to access the agenda, if you're watching online, is to go to the second page of the agenda packet, www.basalt.net, and there is a link that you can hit, and you'll come into the meeting, and James can let you in. Or you can call 1-346-2 248-7799, and the webinar ID is 829-2308-0804. And if you're having problems joining, then you can text me at 970-379-1514, and we'll see what we can do to get you on. So far, is there anybody waiting?
Yeah, we have Jeff from Basalt River Lofts, and I will allow to talk. Jeff, can you hear us?
Yeah, loud and clear, thanks.
Okay, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks everyone for listening to my comments here. My name is Jeff Sterner. I live at 129 Emma Road. I own one of the residential units that will overlook the proposed building. Also president of the Basalt River Lofts HOA. And I guess, and I kind of see where this is going, but in my comments, really more of a question. But you know, when I bought my condo here, you know, I looked at Willits and felt the density and everything was just too much. So I wanted to be closer to the old Basalt. This is what I found. I've loved living here. You know, as part of that purchase process, you look at what might happen with the neighboring property. And I'm glad that it's finally going to get built out. The design looks pretty nice, so happy about that. But when the developer starts asking for PUD amendments for things like height variances and increasing the number of parking spots by 50% compared to what was platted, like it's just changed what I expected to see next door. The density's higher. There's going to be a lot more bedrooms. There's going to be more people. You know, along with that, the traffic with the increase in parking spots. And just, you know, for those that are on the P&Z commission here, you know, how would you feel if the developer came into your own neighborhood asking for similar sorts of concessions? I mean, we talk about the quality of life of the residents that will live there, but I think we're forgetting, you know, the people that are already here. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Are there any other people online?
We don't have anybody else online.
Okay. There's no one here in person, so we will close the public hearing at 7:05. And we will now go to commissioner comments. Gino?
This is not very different than what we looked at before. I had hoped that the elevations would have changed a little bit more. But I will just simply say I think that I can improve the project. I like the project. And I don't like the elevations. But that's a personal comment. And so I understand what our role is. But I have no problem with the project.
I think it's a great looking project. Obviously housing's needed here. I do think I'd like to see if you guys would be open to it, is allowing category 1, which then gives you category 3 as well. I think that 80% number just opens it up to other people that may not have a chance, even though it's not a huge thing, but it's a chance for somebody. Compared to 120, 100 and 120 are kind of already going to be fighting for the same thing, where 80 and may not have that opportunity. But other than that, I think it's a good looking project.
Michelle?
Okay. I would just agree with Gino. You know, I appreciate that the building got lighter and the materials changed a little bit more. It's certainly better than the dark material, so I appreciate that a lot. I'm not quite sure yet how I feel about the trade-offs with the height variance or not. I'm still kind of working through that a little bit. I really appreciate all the things you're doing. I don't know where our end goal is there. To get something for sure. I hear the neighbors' concerns, but the reality is your lot's always had development rights associated with it, so I appreciate that you're doing the landscaping needed. I'm generally in favor of the project. I think it's great to get some affordable housing units there and all of the green building stuff you're doing.
Thank you. Bill?
Well, I think this is a really good project, and I appreciate the efforts you guys have made. I saw some changes on the elevations, which was good, and you made some efforts to kind of pin down the materials on the outside, which I appreciate. Some of them be kind of expensive, and so I'm hoping that they can make it to the end. That's why I brought that up about the whole VE process. You know, that resistor stuff is great. It looks really cool, but it's super expensive. And I hope that we can continue to see that. But the project itself is a valuable addition to Basalt, and it lends housing that's really needed. I super appreciate the fact that you made the units, 2 units type B, especially since there's a fully accessible path right by the project, which I think is another cool thing. So, you know, the trade-off of height for more trail work is also appreciated. I think it's a well worth thing, given that the underlying zoning is even higher than that. So we're not really, you know, going too far for the rest of the community. It's still less than what's allowed by basic zoning. I would encourage one of the type B units to be type A if possible, just because we have such a high presence of handicapped or nonprofits around us. But I understand that's a difficult thing. I would also, I could be inclined to support Kyle's idea of a mix of type units. I wouldn't go so far as to ask you guys to do both those things, but one or the other would be really appreciated, to turn one into a type A or to do a mix of category units. That's all my comments.
Cindy?
I too think this is a really good project, and I appreciate all the work you've put into it. I think location-wise, it lends itself to this, you know, within walking distance of the transit. And, you know, I do appreciate hearing the neighbors' concerns. You know, one thing that I hope would help offset that is if that truck turnaround comes to be, you know, if that works out to be halfway down the block, I would think that would be a boon for the people who live down there. And I don't know if this is tied to the category of affordable housing, but I appreciate the fact that you made a middle grade unit and not just automatically the smallest one be the affordable housing, because I feel like we see that in developments where, you know, it's just kind of the afterthought, the smallest, or, you know, in the corner or whatever. So that really stood out to me. And I think on our site tour today, one thing that stood out to me is it is not a quiet neighborhood back there. So I don't think putting a 12-unit building there would be, you know, especially disruptive to you know, some quiet rural setting, because it's just not that with the highway right there.
I agree with what my colleagues have said. I don't think it's for the developers. I wish we didn't have to make it 26 and parking spots and figure out how to make tandem spots and tuck it in and do that. I appreciate you're trying to be flexible. With the code, that's more of a code issue for me. I've said before, I think sometimes we go over the top with parking and needs, but I don't think that's a debate for tonight here with us. And everything. I think it's a good project. I think, you know, there's always a couple questions here and there. I appreciate your flexibility with the condominialization and the short-term rental idea that was brought up. So I appreciate what you've come up with.
Eric, just to add that Rob did send a comment. He said he wasn't going to be here, and his comment was, Please note that while I applaud the design changes and I'm okay with the parking issues, I still cannot support the change to an entirely residential project with no commercial component as originally envisioned for that site. So I did want to pass that on.
Thank you. Great.
Can I make, sorry, one other comment? This green ride surcharge really kind of gets me, that the resident is paying for something that developer should be on the developer, I think. And I'm like, well, how do you get around that? Because if we stick it to the developer, he just raises the rent potentially by that much more. Has there ever been a discussion, and sorry, this is probably maybe a question, or if we can ask for this, is if that surcharge stays there, that is paid sort of like a RETA at the end when it is sold, and it is charged back and comes out of the sale price? So
Well,
it's,
you could do something different. I mean, you could put a real, keep in mind they can't condominiumize it, but that doesn't prevent them from selling the building. So
and it's a rolling,
you could put a real estate transfer assessment of like 1% on the sale of the building.
why can't it be based on the same numbers per month per ownership length? So if they own it for 5 years, that number just grows every month based on the 8 and 4 with a 2% raise.
You might be able to do it that way. It might be complicated to do it that way, though, because when the transfer happens, we get a lot of people out at Willits, title companies specifically, calling us and are confused with the 1% RETA as it is. So if you had to calculate the amount of months that it was owned and then,
I don't understand how that's difficult. If they own it for 72 months times $12 a month, and then it's prorated based on that. It may be a little complicated, but it puts the onus on, takes the onus off of the renter.
Okay, I mean, you could put if you didn't like it, you could propose to the rest of the P&Z that we work out a condition. You could either do it that we just work something out that meets those goals, or you'd ask to see it again,
Can I
Yeah,
I'm not knowledgeable on that topic at all, but I thought at the last P&Z or council meeting that only kicked in if we didn't satisfy parking. Is that inaccurate? Because I thought that was part of the.
no, it was included, but it was a discussion item, that's how we
Got it.
flagged it.
Okay. For some reason,
Yeah.
I thought it was tied to it because we were 2 parking spots shy. It was, okay.
I don't know that I can answer that, but I thought it was just flagged. I thought it was just flagged as a discussion item.
Okay.
And yeah, we flagged it as a discussion item here for P&Z, so, if it's not something that you're comfortable with,
Yeah.
we should have that conversation.
So, I mean, if you want to make a proposal that we change it to something, and if the attorney doesn't like it, we,
Did you put it on the free market, not the affordable housing?
Well, I mean, to me, it's not a difference because the affordable housing is within the code to build the free market. They're not offering affordable housing. They have to give us affordable housing. So I don't think, to me, it would go against everything.
Exactly.
How much is it?
it's,
It's $8 per month for the 2-bedroom and $4 per month for each 1-bedroom. And it's a 2% annual increase.
Okay. From a purchasing of an apartment building perspective of buying on the net operating income with a cap rate, if you put that onus on the developer, I don't think that's a huge onus at all, and it does ultimately impact the sale price nominally, because, it's a little bit lower, but it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of another to just say the developer should pay that rather than at the end of it, upon transacting, there's something there.
Kyle, if I'm reading this right, that was what we discussed at Willits, but in this sense, if I'm reading this correctly, the recommendation is a $250 fee trying to get to the right thing, so I'm doing it
There's
properly.
two of those.
Oh,
There's-
sorry, my
there's
bad.
two
I
Bs.
see the two
Okay,
different
got-
things.
got-
My
yep,
bad,
yep,
my
yep,
bad.
yep. But Kyle, if you want to make that as part of the motion, you can certainly do that. I mean, you could make that either try to get consensus here that it's everybody in agreement, or.
But just to comment on Aaron's thought there, you wouldn't know how much it would be until you're selling the building.
Well, that's the same as a Rita. You don't know
Yeah.
how much it is until you know what your sale price is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just saying you can't front load that fee for him to pay it now.
But it's not, we don't get it until it's sold.
Yeah, you wouldn't get it.
Because he
Yes.
may not own it for 1 month. He may, he could sell off the rights and then, but it would just be in perpetuity, whoever's next.
Yeah.
But that green, what it's called, the green ride, correct? That green ride, but that's not specific to this particular project, right? It's something that's imposed on any project, so it's a town thing that would have to change?
No, this is something that we've been doing through the individual
Yeah,
applications.
okay.
So, for example, it's not everybody's. This
Okay,
is-
so there's not a town
Yeah.
code that would need
Yeah.
to be revised
You're
because
right,
of it?
correct.
Okay.
Discussion, question.
What's the purpose of this in the first place? What is this
Well,
supposed to
what
do?
we're
I was
trying to get
asking
to is to encourage rideshare. So we've got a lot, rideshare and recycle and all these other alternative modes of transportation, and that's what we're, trying to encourage.
So you're gonna
So
encourage
we're-
them by charging the money to do it?
Yeah, because it works under the town. I hate to say this, but when you have a budget, it helps bring in other funding, that you're not just trying to get everything out of the general fund. It really helps as a seed.
I mean, I would, if people are in favor of it, I would put a motion forward of the language, the amount stays the same, it is not collected until the building is sold, and it's just, it's calculated out at sale. Which then risks, if he was to be a 20-year holder, yes, you do not see it for 20 years, but in 20 years you do see it. But it's the same as a RETA. You never know.
What the counter argument is, if you're trying to leverage it to get additional funds, you lose the purpose of what the town is trying to do.
There's very few commercial developers that are holding properties for a very long time.
Understood, but still, that's the trade-off. Whether it's 10, 20, whatever, versus bringing in, doing the math, this is $100 a month to the town, so you're talking $1,200 a year, give or take, $1,000 a year.
But out of two different pockets. That's it, for me, it's not so much the amount of money, it's whose pocket it's coming out of.
So instead of saying tenants, would you be okay just saying to the development, he'll probably pass it on, we don't know that, but.
That's what I'm saying, is this prevents it from, that was where I was struggling in my head, and this is where I came out with it. It prevents it ever being passed on.
Instead of getting complicated in times, is there a way of just saying instead of coming out of the tenants, it comes out of the developers, and then he's on his own, and we kind of feel better that we don't, I'm just asking a question of you.
You're saying, come up with a number right now?
Or just say, instead of saying of the tenants, we just say of the units. We don't cover them that way. I'm not saying, I'm not sure we can. I know you're trying to protect them, so, I'm just trying to figure a middle ground if there's a way.
That was my initial thought, and that's why I didn't offer it, because it's just gonna be passed down to the tenants. And it's a very small amount, I get it, but it's still just like, to specifically place in there that it's paid by tenants is tough for me to.
This is kind of a silly thing. It's like, who we're gonna nickel and dime first.
A little bit.
But I get your point, Kyle, I really do. This is the first I've heard of it, and I think it's a little on a bit of a reach. But I'll if he makes a motion, I'll vote for it.
We're at that point of motion time, or at least debating these kind of questions, so.
While Kyle is thinking about it, can I raise one other point? Just given, likely sale at some point, I would like us to add some kind of language similar to with Basalt, circle about short-term rentals and
So
6
far,
months or so.
the two that I think we're at, no short-term rental, okay, as a condition. The affordable housing mix at 1, 2, and 3. And, you know, Bill was throwing it out as a switch between the two, but the other one is, can we have a type A unit? So those were the 4 things on the table are, condition number 11, which is the ride share fee, short-term rental, mix, affordable housing mix of 1, 2, and 3, and whether we have one type A unit.
Yeah, if no one else is on board with the type A unit, I'm okay with that. But I just wanted to throw that out there because I think it's an important thing for us as a town to say.
And right now it's type E?
B.
B, what
A-
exactly
A-
is
A
the
is
difference?
fully handicapped accessible,
Okay,
and type B is adaptable, meaning you could add grab bars and it has all
okay.
the turning radiuses and stuff.
I mean, I'll put a motion out then. I mean, you guys, for the green ride surcharge to be paid at sale on, based on the same numbers.
And what about the other conditions? If we're taking a full motion.
Yeah,
Oh, you want all of those?
yeah, so the 4 things on the table,
Yeah.
Or if you want to just accept the memo with just
if you
this
guys want
one.
to do that and have it do a thumb on that one, on just the ride share, like how comfortable everyone is with Kyle's. Want everybody just to do their thumb up on that? Everybody good? I don't know, Michelle?
Middle,
I
down.
like the idea, but I want the town to get the funding.
So far though, it's 1, 2,
I'm in the
3,
middle.
4 that are with it, well, 3 that are with it, and probably 3 that are kind of, right? Is that where are you, on the green ride surcharge, like that? So
yeah, kind of mixed, I guess.
I'll drop it there. I mean, it's,
I'm with you. I don't want to do it on, I feel like we need to finesse that somewhere else and not on this application.
So
we don't see it
instead,
again.
we'll just say, how about we say paid by the owner, and then he gets to make his mind up about how he charges. At the end of the day, you'll not be able to, does everybody agree to that change? We'll just say the owner? Okay,
I'd be good
so
with
make
that.
that, how about the affordable housing mix of one category 1, 1, 2, and 1, 3? How's everybody on that one? Gino, are you good with that one?
I'm not quite sure what you said.
Oh, the affordable housing mix would be 1 category 1, 1 category 2, and 1 category 3. Are you good with that? Okay. And then, no short-term rental. Everybody good with that one? Okay, everybody's got their thumb up. And then the last is to have 1 type A unit.
Sure.
2, and to have a type A unit for a handicap accessibility.
Just a quick, I mean, how much does that change the,
It's just a money thing.
and how much are you talking? A couple $1,000?
It's
Big
probably,
bucks?
it's a big-ish, it's probably,
It's just grab bars? Is that the difference between A and B?
Yeah,
well, no, it's grab bars and, knee spaces under the vanities and
having
stuff.
the cabinets lower and the sinks lower.
No, the cabinets would be lower anyway. 'cause-
Yeah. So it's not that much.
Turning radius inside of the bathroom.
Yeah, that's already there. That's already there.
Not necessarily in type B. You can
Yeah.
have pull in, but you don't necessarily have to have the full.
Yeah, but you can make it work by having the knee space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You lose cabinet space below the sink.
You lose cabinet space, but it's more of a statement than it is a thing. On all my Up Valley multifamily projects, we've been doing that even above the amount that's required. Because most are constitutional. So they want to have that, primarily because there's organizations like Challenge Aspen, it's a big part of the community.
and is this not required because there's not
They don't have
enough
to,
units?
yeah, they don't have to do it. They don't have enough, they're not over a threshold where they have to provide one. But so that would be like they're going above and beyond to do it, but we're asking them, but not requiring them.
So that will help get me over the edge of the community benefit.
Okay.
Also, Bill, if we approved it, you're allowing 25% to go handicap, which I think is very good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we have
Just 4
one,
units on the
one-
ground floor.
one handicapped and one adaptable is saying a lot.
Mhm.
Because that's something I've been on about all projects, not just your guys. I think all projects should make a greater effort than the code requires.
Yeah, so we currently have 4 type Bs, not 2.
Okay. Oh, that's even better.
So three
Yeah,
and
I'm
three
talking
and
about
one.
the one type A. We're still
Yeah,
one type A.
I know, I just was correcting the whole idea of 1 of each. We actually would have 3 of each and 1 type A in your
Yeah.
So
proposal.
3B and 1A, that's what it would be.
Yeah.
3 Bs and 1A was what he's saying.
Yeah.
And I think our condition would spell that out, so that way someone reading it later, the building official would understand what it was, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay, so is everybody
Sorry.
good with,
Is the 4B, sorry, is the 4B part of code, or that was an offer from you guys to do that many?
It's
That's
a,
code.
it's a
Yeah.
sort of it's a number of units in the building
For-
and
okay.
establishing of HUD requirements.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, but the type A is not. Yeah,
Sure. Yep.
That's the real ask.
okay, so how many people are good with 3 type Bs and 1 type A? Okay, all right, okay,
I'm not actually.
okay.
I mean, I'm not gonna
Mhm.
jettison it, but just for the record, I would feel much more comfortable approving that kind of thing where you're pushing a cost onto somebody else if I knew how many of these type A units exist in the valley and how many are actually rented by people who need them. Because I feel like you see a lot of these things, a lot of time and money goes into things, and then there's not people to fill them, so. I just, if I had hard numbers, if somebody presented me and showed me like, yeah, there's this need and there are 5 people and all the apartments are filled and these 5 people need this specific type of unit, then I'd be, yep, no problem. But just on principle, I can't justify pushing the cost on to somebody else.
That's a hard piece of data to get.
I think it's absolutely critical though, if you're gonna
So you
be
limit it.
pushing for that kind of stuff when somebody else bears the cost of it.
I think you're not gonna get it anywhere except for in a multifamily development, though. So if we're getting a duplex or some more units across the street, for example, we're not gonna get it. 80A requirements there.
Well, in a house, you would just have to build it yourself, right?
Right.
Yeah. For Michelle, it's a community benefit trade-off for the height, for the extra height.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay, so we had 1 dissenting, but we probably have a motion. The motion would be
Staff memo with the
with
4
five
conditions.
five
5.
changes. Condition number 11 becomes owner instead of tenant, no short-term rental, affordable housing mix is 1, 2, and 3. Actually, there's only 3. Then the 3 type Bs and 1 type A.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion, just as Susan read.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Michelle seconds. Do we want a roll call, or you want to just vote?
It's 4 then.
Since we can see everybody understand what the motion was? Do you have a question,
So
Gino?
this is 3.
I didn't quite hear, in this approval that we approved, then going to the 32-foot limit, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
That's good.
Yep.
I'm for it.
Okay.
So, go ahead, Kyle.
Does the green ride surcharge now need to add language that even upon sale, this continues, now that we've passed it on to the owner?
It would automatically do that.
Okay.
Because we have and when you don't see the ordinance, the ordinance says heirs, successors, and assigns, but we'll make sure that happens.
So, all in favor? Hands. Aye.
Okay,
All opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
okay. Let me
Thank you,
just
gentlemen.
write
Good
down.
luck.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The motion was made by Bill, and the second
Second
was
was
Michelle. Okay.
That's a thorny issue to tackle all up and down the valley.
excellent.
Appreciate that.
So, next on the agenda, commissioner comments and staff updates, just to keep us moving.
Okay, so in terms of staff updates, Basalt River Park development across the street, as you can see, is still continuing. They've paid for building permit fees for all five of the townhomes that border the park.
Good job.
And they have an excavation permit for the first triplex that's on Two Rivers Road. The park is marching along. You can see the concrete that's being poured. The water line construction is continuing through the park. That is what you majorly see if you're actually in the park. And the town council approved the contract with Connect One Design to do the Phase 2 work, which will include the plantings, include the bathroom and the bus shelter, and it will include the pavilion. Stotts Mill, and they're working on their building permit for what we call the Makerspace building is now called the Gallery building, so they're working on that building permit. The developers seem to think that they will actually be able to submit and get that building permit before the end of the year. Lot 4, where Public Works is going to be located, that work is going on, if you've seen the work going on there. Stotts Mill, they've submitted 3 out of 4 of the multifamily buildings, and James is just starting the discussions on the daycare building, because they'll not be able to build, they have to build the park and the daycare before they build that 4th building. And Willits Town Center, just the the bank building that's being built as we speak, and
Susan,
the
with
car
Stotts,
wash.
with Stotts Mill, the single-family units that they've sold, are they, is there a delay in those, or those are kind of open to the?
I think I don't know why they, go ahead, James.
They had, the way I understand it is there were provisions in the contracts that said they couldn't start building until next year sometime.
Okay, I was just wondering.
And it ties back to the infrastructure requirements.
People have to build those themselves.
Yeah, those were bought individual lots, yeah.
Yeah.
And the car washes, thinking that they're actually not going to start construction until 2022. So we've got some details to work out with the status of their land use approvals that we haven't resolved yet, but it doesn't look like they're going to start construction this year. What else should I mention, James?
The pool, they're finishing up some of the finishing touches. They finished the floors in the locker room, which was one of the items that was kind of put off so that they could open the pool this summer. Couple mechanical cleanups, and they got the replumbing in so that the solar thermal would be active too.
And so we have some
good finishes there.
Yeah, they're really pretty. They're really pretty. We have a couple RFPs that we're going to be sending out. One of them is, we've been working with the school on doing kind of the school and other projects. Hopefully the bond will pass in November, but to do a solar backup battery project, which will be cool. And we're doing an RFP on affordable housing, and then also to search for a broker to kind of help with those transactions, and also potentially look at buying land for a police facility, stuff like that. So anyway, any other questions?
What property would the RFP for affordable housing pertain to?
That's the idea, is that they would be looking at properties within the urban growth boundary. So it's not, it's not this particular property. If we knew what property, we wouldn't, just like the Lot 4, we didn't hire a broker to do that because, for various reasons, but yeah.
Is the town moving forward on Midland Avenue improvements from the capital needs?
Yeah, we have weekly meetings, and really we're just kind of setting in motion the work that has to be done. you know, title work and survey work and that type of thing. Really, I think the way they kind of had it set up is it would really be like about a year of design work before, you know, you're ready to do any detailed construction.
But that's where it's gonna go. It's gonna,
Yeah.
that's where all that bond money is gonna go to that.
Not all of it.
But most
It
of
had
it.
three. It had Midland Avenue, Green Initiatives, and Affordable Housing.
So are the affordable housing components gonna be buy downs or?
It allowed the flexibility of purchasing land, buy downs.
So there's no idea where that goes right now. They're just searching for options. about
Well,
the
that's the idea of having a broker. I mean, we have some ideas. Town staff did quite a bit of work as part of that, of identifying different properties and doing some
The
analysis.
primary recommendation was to do a property, but if the property doesn't present itself and we have a pool of money, then we can do option A, B, C, and D.
That's why I was asking, because what you say is like, oh, that's the
Yeah.
best wishes, but then what actually happens could be something else because
Correct.
opportunities present themselves.
Correct.
So as far as the affordable housing component of that, could you just keep the board apprised of
Yep.
that? So we can just hear what everyone's
Sure.
thinking is?
You could do that.
Thanks.
Great. Any other questions, thoughts?
These guys, I drive, I drive over here every morning. I swear, there's no flagger. There's not a flagger over there to be found. And maybe they are not required to have one, but it is.
I'll follow up because you saw that we responded and they promised
Yes.
that they would have someone and there was some unique circumstance. So next time, just give Catherine, let Catherine know right away and
Yeah.
we'll get someone
I
out
will
there.
try. It's just such a funny situation to be driving over there, and then there's like a little chicken and egg game going on when you drive past the construction site over here. There's not a flagger usually in the morning. And so a big vehicle is always trying to get around to the other section of the construction site, and it is sometimes very exciting. And sometimes I'm just glad I got through it. But I thought it was a one-time occurrence.
Yeah,
and
next
now
time
it's
call us
kinda-
up because I gave you Catherine's
Yeah,
phone number. Just call her up right away.
we'll try, yeah.
Yeah,
I just-
yeah.
ooh.
We'll talk to him
Yeah.
about it.
Well,
We didn't know that was happening. so.
Well, I didn't really want to make a big deal of it, but literally, I think this morning I didn't even see, sometimes you see a flagger, I didn't even see a person out there this morning even trying, and so it's exciting.
Maybe they can't find anybody to do the job.
Well, then they can't
to
have
a
construction
flagger.
going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just thinking how hard it is for everybody to find.
Yeah, if they can't find an employee, the superintendent should be out there doing it.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, the guys that are sitting in the construction trailer. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Exactly.
yeah.
So should we go ahead and have a,
Unless there's any
Oh, sorry.
comments? You sure?
Yep.
Cool. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to
Do we
adjourn?
have a second?
Second.
Second from Bill. All in favor?
Yay.
Aye. We are adjourned at 7:40.
Yay.